Nice. How's things in your end?
It's good, very good. Yeah, we're going out to play a festival in 2 days now, so excited about that.
Back touring again, which is I guess what everyone has been waiting for. I guess. Have you been doing shows before this though, or was this the first time back on the road again?
No, we started up in April this year
Okay.
to to play the shows that got postponed for 2 years. So
Yeah.
so it's been really fun getting back out there.
Oh yeah, it must have been. I mean, yeah, that's a long wait to not be doing shows. I guess. What was that feeling like to sort of step back on the stage again after such a long time?
It was very strange, actually. Also very emotional, I think.
Mm.
But yeah, we discussed a little bit. The first few shows was quite strange, like walking on stage and you're like, why are those people looking at us? Because it's been so long. But and then then there's the count in, and then we just do what we always did. So
Yeah.
so it's really, but it's really good to be back, and I think we never it's not like we ever took anything for granted, but I
Mm.
think you could just feel in the band that there's really appreciation of what we do when we play the shows now.
Yeah, I mean, I've a number of musicians and bands that I've been speaking to the last 12 months or so, and they've all said the exact same thing. Like there seems to be a new appreciation for sort of being in a band and doing shows that maybe before in the past before COVID and stuff that there was complaints about being on the road for so long and this and that and
Mm.
sort of taking it for granted a little bit. So there seems to be a universal sort of appreciation for being in a band now in 2022.
Yeah, yeah, I
Obviously,
can imagine. Yeah.
new album coming out. Obviously, new Soilwork album, which is always good to see. This is your second album with the band, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So obviously, getting the first one out the way, going into the second one. How did you personally approach it, and did it feel differently than the first one?
Yeah, we did things a little bit different this time around, because the first one I did, the last studio album, was like one long session. I think we were in the studio for 5 or 6 weeks
Mm.
to record everything and complete the album. And this time around, we split it up into 3 sessions, both because of the pandemic situation. So
Mm.
we were not in a rush at any time, and also it was kind of hard for us to go into the studio for so long, and yeah, we didn't know how much to wait basically before the release. So we took our time, and we did the recordings over a span of 1 year, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Finished the last songs in January, and the process this time was that usually I'll prepare stuff with the songs David. He writes. Him and I will go back and forth, like online communications and sort the drums and stuff like that.
Mm.
And then Björn, he actually wrote all his songs in the studio. So that was it was a good challenge for me, because I like to be very prepared for studio, and basically on his songs it was something like getting the demo in the studio on the evening, and then next morning I jammed through some ideas and listened back to the song with Björn, and then we were like deciding on what to record. So it was a very fresh perspective for me, at least for his songs. So that was really interesting to try to work that way.
And obviously, you're mentioning about sort of taking a bit more time on these songs as well. And that's another thing that I've been getting a lot with, obviously, a lot of musicians who were sort of recording and writing during this sort of pandemic era. Do you find that that was really a huge advantage, that you had sort of tweak things a little bit better than maybe you would have had if you had sort of like limited time to do the songs?
I think, yeah, I mean, it was. I think personally, I'd like to to get it over with, if you can say that. So I like to go in there and get everything done, but I also, during the pandemic, I appreciated the time between the studio sessions, both because we could reflect on the songs and
Mm.
and have a really good impression of the songs before the release, and we had to select some songs for the album, of course, and also to go into the studio with a fresh perspective on things. So I think that was a big advantage for us to really have some time, and also since our recordings usually gets quite intense because we do stuff all the time and record all the time, so it's a very intense bubble to be in for a long period of time. So I think 3 times 10 days or so was a good fit.
Oh yeah, and obviously working with people like Bjorn and stuff, who obviously they've been doing Soilwork for such a long time, and you sort of stepping in and sort of in their sort of world that they've sort of been working on for such a long time. Just from your perspective, because I am sort of curious, and because there is a sort of a somewhat connection between the fans and yourself, because of the fact that you're somewhat of an outsider sort of stepping into the Soilwork world. What's your view on how those guys work as far as like the creative process and all that? I mean, what's your perspective on what they do as far as Soilwork is concerned?
I mean, I think it was very interesting to me to get into the band and see how they work, because from my background, I was the other projects that I was a part of. We usually had much smaller budgets, so it was really something to really be prepared for studios and record an entire album in 1 week. So I was used to go in there and just execute and complete everything. Whereas with Soilwork, we had a little more time to be more creative, and also I like to be prepared as well for the studio. But it was actually it took some adaptation for me to rest in that situation where you have time to improvise and try different things out. But I think for the writing process and recording process, I think it's a very good fit, because I think as a band we have sort of like I guess you can say a little bit childish approach sometimes in the studio, because we want to try everything, and sometimes that becomes ridiculous ideas that doesn't work, but then we have a good laugh, and other times it somehow works, like on the new album we have the intro with the banjo. And that was something like a late hour someday, and there is this guitar guru in the studio next door, and we were like, wonder if he has a banjo. so we knocked on his door, and he tracked some stuff for us, and it was one of those processes where it's like, couldn't it be fun? And then it turned out great.
I mean, that's the thing about Soilwork. It seems like, especially the sort of more progressive side of the band, has sort of been a big part of their sound over the last few albums. And so I guess there's a lot of experimentation that's happening with that band. I mean, was that sort of happening in the studio as well? Like, sort of like you mentioned with the banjo thing, like was a lot of that kind of stuff happening with this album as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know that especially David, he has been working a lot more with, he usually has quite a big vision for his songs going into the studio. So even though the demo can be quite stripped down, he also always have like layers and layers he wants to add, and working a lot with classical instruments lately to get more strings in and sort of make a bigger sounding soundscape in a way. And then there's a lot of we do a lot of percussion in the studio, where we experiment with different sounds and stuff like that. And then so there's a lot of experimenting going on in the studio.
And also the evolution of the band, because I've been a fan of Soilwork for a number of years, and to see that evolution of the band and the way that they've sort of transversed different sort of styles and stuff is interesting. And I'm just wondering, like, was that still part of the evolution of the band on this album? Like, as far as like, was there an agenda, a motive? Like, what was the sort of the thing that you guys wanted to set out to achieve with this particular album?
I think like we had this idea of trying to make sort of a continuation of Övergivenheten, the last studio album. And basically ever since that album, mainly David. He continued to write songs. He's always super creative, and some of those songs turned out to be the EP, A Whisper of the Atlantic. But even songs from those sessions made it onto this album. So we never stopped writing new songs, basically. And I guess there's some sort of continuation from the last studio album to this one. But it has just been like I guess you can tie the two albums a little bit, but we also at the same time want to release new music in the way that we don't want to repeat ourselves. So we like to go somewhere else and develop the sound and bring something new instead of just recording the same album over and over again.
Yeah, definitely. It makes for a much more interesting listen, I think. And obviously, hopefully the fans will sort of come along for that ride as well, because it's always a bit of an iffy thing, with certain fans who only like a certain part or a certain era of the band, especially after a certain amount of years, because Soilwork's been around for such a long time that there's going to be those hardcore fans that were in the beginning that like, we only like this kind of stuff, it's a balancing act, I guess.
Yeah, and that in particular is quite interesting because with you always see comments whenever we post something on social media, and even with the new singles, I've seen just a few comments like, yeah, that's it, goodbye Soilwork, because I guess they don't like the new direction. But at the same time, our streaming numbers, they are just growing and growing and growing. So it's sort of weird, like I'm sure you have like a part of the fan base that appreciate like the back catalog more, but at the same time it seems like people they stick around and many more are discovering the band. So I would say it's good how do you say there's a rise somewhere like in the band with the new releases. We just actually recently posted about some shows in Australia. So we're coming in November. We have 5 shows. So
have you been to Australia with the band before?
Yes, just one time in 2019, I think.
Oh, okay. So how was that experience for you then?
That was really great. It was very nice fans in Australia. I know they've been there like 8 times before.
Yeah.
But it was really everything was very nice, and it's a lovely country. It was a pleasure. So I'm sure it's gonna be very nice to go there again this November.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you back again. Like you said, the band's been here a number of times, so they clearly have a big audience here. What did you think of the country, like as far as like the fans, like comparing it to maybe other countries? Did you see much differences, similarities, or?
I mean, I think there was. I mean, usually you can feel the fans appreciate us coming to the shows, but I think it was special with Australia because of the distance. I think then it's not that you go there several times a year, so like people were really appreciative. So that was something that you could really feel, and we had a lot of meet and greets with fans, so it was really fun to have a chat with everyone, and people were very, very happy. So that was something really cool to experience.
Awesome. Looking forward to that, and obviously congratulations on the new album as well. It's fantastic as always, and thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a great chat today.
Thank you very much.